Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to GuitarAnimal.com again. This is Trent, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about how to set up your amplifier. We're going to change shots here in a minute. You'll be able to see the top of the amplifier I'm using today. And I'm going to talk with you a little bit about how to use the controls on it, bass, mid, treble, how to set up your gains, the volume on it, and things like that, because I think if you spend a few minutes setting up the tone on your amplifier, it's going to sound better, you're going to end up playing a lot more. So that means you're going to get more practice. So that's what we're going to go for today. I hope you enjoy it. Alright, so this is how we're going to set up the amplifier. The amp that we're using today is a Blackstar HT5. It is a tube amplifier. That means it does have tubes in it, vacuum tubes. And you can look at my amp video to learn more about tube amps and solid state amps and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to talk today about how to set up your basic sounds on your amplifiers. This amp has two channels. Means it has one over here which is clean. It's non-distorted, sounds like this. And then I have a distorted channel. When I activate it with the Overdrive select button, sounds like this. So what we're going to talk about is how to set up some of the controls on this amp. Yours might be slightly different. May only have one channel, may have two, but they should have some form of equalizer. This is a great amp to show you because on the clean channel I just have a tone control. So I have one knob to adjust my tone. On the distorted channel I have three tone controls, the bass, the mid, and the treble, and I'll explain what each one of those do. This ISF knob is unique to this amplifier. It actually changes it from sounding like a more American style tube amp to a more British style tube amp. So we're going back and forth between more of a Fender style sound to more of a Marshall type sound. I'm not going to really cover that knob in this video because unless you have this particular amplifier, you're not going to have that. So we're not going to worry about that knob. And then over here is my reverb level, and we'll talk about what that is and how to set it. All right, we're going to start out here on the clean channel, and we have a volume control which is going to control how loud the guitar is. On 0, no sound at all. Turn it up and you actually can hear the amp. So we're just going to leave it at that level so you can hear the guitar. And we're going to talk about this single tone control that is on this channel. If I go all the way to the left, it sounds like this. All the way to the right, much brighter sounding, a lot more top end. I like to adjust that somewhere in the middle. When I'm adjusting a single tone control, I will strum all 6 strings on the guitar, kind of paying attention to what the overall sound is like. Over here it'll be bassy, and to the right it'll be more bright. For my taste, I like it somewhere around 12 to 1 o'clock. And that sounds pretty good. Now I was testing those sounds using the, I'm using a Les Paul today, and I was using the bridge pickup. If I flip that to the neck pickup, it will sound different. So you may want to set up your tone control while you're on the pickup that you're going to be using for whatever you're playing that day. If you're going to go back and forth, you want to set it on one pickup and then switch to the other pickup and test it and maybe adjust to taste again. In this case I added just a hair more treble because it was a little muddy sounding on the bridge, on the neck pickup, and the bridge pickup still sounds good to me. So that's a very simple setup. You just have a volume and you have a tone. That's all we're doing on the clean channel. Now we're going to look over at the Overdrive channel and talk a little bit more about it. We switch to the Overdrive. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to set all the EQ controls straight up and down at 12 o'clock. That means they're pretty much going to be a wash. They're just going to be not really too bassy, not really too trebly. Just leave all those there. And we're looking at our gain control and our volume. The volume is how loud this channel is. That's the volume, and we can talk about the gain. I can turn it to 0 and you would get no sound at all. Cuts the sound off on this amplifier. As we turn it up, it brings us up and adds more gain. High gain, which is really a lot lot of gain. I usually like to keep it down more at like an AC/DC sound, the band AC/DC. It's crunchy, but it's not super distorted. I have a good bit of sustain on this amp, but it's not too fuzzy. Keep in mind that when you're playing loud, the higher your gain control is, the more noise you're going to have. Also, if everything's on 10, it's hard to back away from that when you're playing. Your amp's on 10, so you don't have as much texture or dynamics in your playing as you would have if you use a lower gain setting. And we could always use an overdrive pedal on top of it. Could always use an overdrive pedal on top of it to boost that for a solo or for a song that required more gain. So that's how I would set up the overdrive here. Volume for how loud the amp is, and then gain to give me basically a crunchy sound like AC/DC. All right, now going to the EQ section. If you think about this, we have bass, mid, and treble on this amplifier. That's really 3 separate volume controls that affect different EQ areas or different frequency ranges of your sound. Your bass affects your bass, obviously. The mid range is affected by the middle control, and the treble end is affected by the treble control, the high end. If you think of them as 3 separate volume controls, it works really well. The other thing is these frequency points that these are set to are tailored to your guitar. So when you're adjusting your bass, you want to be playing your 6th string or your 5th string, the bass end of it, maybe the open notes, and adjust the bass. You can hear that effect is really exaggerated because all I'm playing are bass notes. You don't want to get it too high. The bass kind of sounds flabby and not very tight, but if it's too low, it's very thin. So somewhere in the middle. I usually favor the bass somewhere in the 10 o'clock range. We're going to do the same thing for our mid control, our middle control. We're going to be playing the middle 2 strings on your guitar, the 3rd string and the 4th string open. You can really affect your overall tone with the middle control because this, the guitar is a mid-range instrument, so the mid-range is quite important. I like to have it somewhere in the middle, usually between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Sounds like this. If you want it to have a little more honky tone to it, boost it up around 2 o'clock. If you want to have a little bit of a scooped mid-range, if you're doing Metallica, things like that, might want to drop it down a little bit. For this purpose of this video, I'm going to go with about 2 o'clock. Now for your treble control, it affects the high end. So you're going to want to hit the 1st string and the 2nd string of the guitar while you're adjusting this. You can hear the different effects that has. I like to set this again between 10 and 2. It's basically how bright do I want my sound, how cutting do I want my sound. Now I adjusted all those tones on the distortion channel or the overdrive channel today using the bridge pickup. Again, for most of my playing, I would use the bridge pickup for overdrive, but we can also switch to the neck pickup and get a nice tone. As opposed to the bridge. So they both sound pretty good. The other control that we have here that we want to talk about is the reverb control. It basically simulates the sound of you being in a large room. So if you would turn it to 0, it's going to be very dry. There's nothing, there's no tail after what I play. If I was recording, I would most likely use that setting because I wouldn't want to record and print with that reverb. I will add reverb later when I'm doing the mix of the track, and that way I have more control over it. But for playing live, you might want to use a little bit of reverb. Again, if I play a riff with no reverb, I have really great tone, but it sounds a little sterile. So if I bring up some reverb, now you have a tail at the end of it, and you can adjust how much. If I go all the way to 10, I fell in a well, basically. If I go to maybe 10 o'clock, a little bit of a tail. 12 o'clock is a good place to start, good starting point for reverb. Now you can say a little bit more. And I like the sound of that for single notes. Nice tail. For a rhythm, I might turn it down just a hair. Lastly, I want to show you the effect of the reverb control on the clean channel. No reverb on the clean channel will sound like this. It's very sterile sounding. Start about 12 o'clock, and then you can plus or minus anywhere from about 10 to 2. It's basically where I like to set mine. Alright, so don't be afraid to adjust the controls on your amplifier. I don't want you to limit yourself to what I've showed you here today. This is a good starting point, but be creative with it. If your amp sound, or you like it better if you have your treble control on 10, that's okay. That's the right answer for you. This is just a general guideline to get you started on the amp, adjust some of the controls, and see what you can get out of your rig. Thanks for checking out this video today on GuitarAnimal.com. I hope that you learned a few things from it. It was fun to show this to you. And remember, your amplifier might look slightly different than this, the amp that we used in the video today, but it still has the main functions. You have tone controls, you have gain controls, you have volume controls. So experiment with it. There is no wrong setting. If you like the sound of it, great. If you don't like the sound of it, turn a knob. Check us out at GuitarAnimal.com. This is Trent. I'll see you next time.